Hey everybody, welcome to the In All Things podcast. It's time to see God in everything.
Well, hello and welcome to the In All Things podcast. I am Kristi Johnson and I have taken over the podcast today to talk about Mother's Day and everything that goes with that. And with me, I've brought two friends in because you don't just want to hear from me. So if you wouldn't mind taking a minute and just introducing yourself, telling us a little bit about you.
Sure. My name's Rylie. My husband's name is Eric. We have a 2.5-year-old daughter named Nellie, and I'm currently 33 weeks pregnant with baby number 2.
My name is Julie. I'm married to Nick. We have 3 boys, Samuel, who's 16, Owen, who's 14, and Ryan, who's 10.
Very good. And I'm Kristi, like I said, and I have a 26-year-old son and had another son named Brock that passed away almost 9 years ago. Crazy. But I thought it was important to come on and talk about Mother's Day. I'm sure there's a lot of you listening that are mothers, and it's just fun to celebrate mothers, and it's definitely the hardest and most rewarding thing that I think that we do in our lives. I don't think you're ever prepared for it. It's crazy to me that you don't have to have any qualifications to be a mom. You can just be a mom. And so I thought we'd come on and just talk a little bit about motherhood and maybe a little bit about our moms. I thought we could start with that. So just something that maybe your favorite thing about your mom, and also if there's something that she did that like you kind of followed through with that tradition, or also if there's something she did that you didn't follow through, you can mention that too. But my mom was awesome. She passed away when she was 62, so very young, but she was so fun, and she was very people-y. Like you could not go to a grocery store without her talking to whoever you ran into, or you'd be like, come on, Mom, come on. She's very people-y. She loved all holidays and made a big deal out of it. We got lots of gifts for everything. She decorated for everything. I think if social media was around, she probably would have lived 10 years more, just the ability to keep up with people. And so that's something that I've kept from her. I've tried to make holidays a really big deal. I'm probably go overboard on all the things, and when I have a grandkid, it'll probably be worse. And we decorate for everything and just want to make everyone feel special on their holidays. I even do that here with like my coworkers. I love to I'm just a gift person, and so I got that from her. And even for Brock Strong, Brock's birthday every year, we go out and do 11 really big things. And I think it's because I just miss planning those birthday parties and those things that we do. So I'm going to start with you, Rylie. Riley's mom happens to be one of my best friends. And so she can't say anything too negative today. But just tell us your favorite thing about your mom and something maybe that you have brought into your motherhood from her.
There's not a whole lot negative to say about my mom.
Your mom's awesome.
Yeah, Eric says that my mom's a saint, and I can't really disagree. She's probably one of my favorite people for sure. She's the best. She's always so selfless and willing to help. She helps us. She's our main source of childcare for our daughter, but she's just so selfless and giving, and she's always so quick to listen and quick to help. Growing up was always fun too. Like she was a fun mom. Like, I don't know, we were always doing fun and exciting things. She made the holidays super fun. She's just probably one of the most loving and generous people that I know. And I know that she gets a lot of that from her mom too. My grandma's just super generous and loving as well. So I hope that I'm half the, I always say, I hope I'm half the mom my mom was, and I'm be doing well because she's just great.
Any tradition thing that you've brought into your parenting?
Any traditions? I don't know. Nothing like comes to mind. I don't know. I always, when I think of like my childhood and like my mom and my childhood, as a child, I always felt like the priority. So I always especially with being a working mom, try to when I come home from work, okay, my kid is my priority, or my husband, my family, really just kind of putting everything else on the back burner. Everything else can wait. I can clean the house later. I can do whatever later. I really want to make quality time and things a priority. I feel like she always did really great at that. So
yeah, it was fun because we kind of Amy and I raised our kids together, so we were with you guys a lot. She was definitely more fun than me because she wasn't quite as OCD as me, and she would let those kids come over and have this big vat of rice in the house, and I'm like, and my kids thought it was super cool to play with the rice.
She still has a vat of rice at her house.
Oh yes. No, so your mom was super fun. I agree. How about you, Julie?
Oh my goodness, and that makes me think of my mom. My mom would, when she'd watch the boys, I'd come home and they'd be covered in shaving cream. And I'd be driving in the driveway okay, what's this going to mean? So my mom was a single mom. It was me, my mom, and my sister. And so my mom worked an hour away from where we lived. So we stayed with my grandmother a lot. So I always kind of tier it like my grandmother, then my mother. And so my mom missed a lot, but my grandma picked up that slack. So it was wonderful to have that. And now I see that in my mom. 6 years ago, my mom was able to move to Pickerington. And so now she's taken on that role with my boys. You know, hey, come over for dinner. Hey, you know, pop in and pop out. And she helps. I mean, she's Uber. She's dinner. She's, you know, let the dog out. She's everything we need that way. Yeah. So I was trying to think of traditions too. My mom, we were very big with family. Family that live far away, family that live close, and time together. And I can see that because it's not always quantity, but quality of time that you get together. So I definitely hope I'm trying to pass that on through her.
Yeah, which gets harder and harder as your kids get older. Okay, so we kind of talked about how old our kids are. I want to know, like right now in your parenting, what do you see as the biggest challenge? And again, I can go first since I knew these questions. For me, I'm in a completely different stage of parenting. So my son got married 2 years ago, and so brought a whole nother like human into our life. And someone who should rightfully so kind of take my place and be the number one person. That was hard. It's hard to know like when to step in and when to let go. And my daughter-in-law Anna, she's awesome, amazing, crazy, just like our family, like she had to be to fit in. But it's just very different now that I'm not as number one. You know, you're a mom and your kid's number one, and it's just, when Brock passed away, that was my biggest thing, was like, gosh, I just miss the way he made me feel so important. And so now, and Tucker's still very good. I see him multiple times a week, talk to him every day. He's still very good, but it's just a different thing now that there's a whole nother family on the other side. So Christmas, you can't just do whatever you want. But now we have to coordinate with other families, and it's just a different phase. And I'm not going to say it's terrible. It was real hard in the beginning, but now I'm used to it. I'm kind of like being able to do whatever Terry and I want to do whenever. And like he lives 1.6 mile away from us. So I see Tucker a lot, and so I'm pretty lucky in that. Terry and I moved to Charlotte after we got married and lived 6.5 hours away from our family. And I don't know what I would have done if Tucker did that. So we'll start with you, Julie. You have busy kids. I know your kids. I know travel sports. I know all the things. What is the biggest challenge right now for you?
Yeah, my problem is there's only one of me. So like I saw this meme that said my kids are living their best life and I'm their ride. Like, that I feel in my soul.
Yes.
Because it, you know, yes, and they all do different things and they're all going. Samuel started driving a year ago, which is the best and the worst thing all rolled into one. That has truly helped. My mom, you know, literally we go day by day. This person needs to go here. So that, you know, that trying to keep up with all they're doing. Because I can remember somebody telling me that when they're little, and you think, I can't leave them. I can't, I can't work full time. I can't do all these things. And then I was like, girl, no, work then. They can't go. They can't do anything. Yeah. Go part-time when they're older, and you got to get them places. And I have been very blessed to be able to do that. I do work part-time out of the home, and I'm in the home the rest. So it's, just
tell us like what your kids are into. Like what I know travel sport. Tell us what like they're all into.
Yes.
Travel baseball,
so
whatever.
Samuel plays school baseball for Pickerington North. Owen plays school baseball for Lakeview. Ryan's playing lacrosse. Samuel and Owen both play travel baseball in the summers, and sports are year round. Yeah. Like that's a whole nother, thing.
So different from when we were growing up. I don't know if you played sports growing up.
I did.
But we had like an all-star team at the end of the season. And that was like one weekend. There was no travel, all these things.
No, we were ill prepared for that in the beginning. Now we love it. Yeah. We have been on teams where, Nick and I are friends with the parents. So for us, it's just a social, right? And kind of we're like, oh, yeah, there's a game going on. Okay. So they do that. They're very involved with Sycamore. So they're here usually at least once a week doing something that way. So, yeah. For sure.
And then we come to Rylie, who's a very different stage of life.
Yeah.
And so what's your biggest challenge right now?
The terrible temper tantrums and potty training.
I don't even believe you. I babysat Ellie and I don't even believe you. She is an angel.
It's been a minute. But yeah, no, I was sharing before we started this that she's doing this new thing now where she's screaming at the top of her lungs, like blood curdling screaming, just because she thinks it's funny. But like my neighbors are probably concerned, but I don't know how to make it stop. Like you can't, like they can't rationalize it too. So it's like, I need you to quit. Like, please don't get CPS called on me. Like, but yeah, no, windows. That, and then just, I don't know. I mean, I work full time out of the home. My husband works in EMS and is full-time in paramedic school right now, so our life is just busy. So just feeling like I'm giving her all the attention and love and I don't know, just time that I feel like she deserves. But thankfully mom mom steps in.
And being pregnant, I remember being pregnant for Tucker and didn't know any better. He's my first kid and thinking I was tired, but then being pregnant and having a 2-year-old to chase around because Tucker was 2.5 as well. It's a whole different story.
Oh, yeah, it's fun.
Well, and season of life, right? Like, we're busy, but you are a different kind of busy because, mine don't have the energy that yours have, right? So then you're busy, like, constantly following and making sure, like, you're not hurting or so, things like that. So it's a different busy, different season of life busy.
Yeah. So we're going to switch and say, what is your favorite thing right now about motherhood and the ages your kids are? For me, it's like Tucker's a friend now. I mean, obviously still my son, but he's more, and Anna, they're friends. They're fun to be around. They like to hang out with us. I can talk to him about anything. Every once in a while, he'll bring I'm so glad you did that when I was growing up. So you're like, I'm so happy to hear that. Like one time he told me, I'm so glad you were so strict. Because now, like, I see it, and so I'm thankful for that because we were pretty strict. But it's just fun now. Like, it's just fun having him, even though, he's only 26. He feels more like just a friend sometimes, and so that's a lot of fun. That's probably my favorite thing right now. So how about you, Rylie?
I still feel like Nellie just adores me, loves me, like her little arms when they wrap around you and give you like the biggest hug. And she my favorite thing she says now is, "I'm so happy, mommy." And she'll like come up and give you a hug, and I'm like, "Oh, I love that you're happy." But yeah, I don't know, she's just still like snuggly, but then like watching her learn too and like discover things on her own. Like, I don't know, it's just fun.
It's fun. It's a fun age. What's your favorite thing?
Yes. I think I'm kind of with you. My boys' personalities are showing, and now it's transitioning, right? Because I always said I was a benevolent dictator. Like, we are not running a democracy here, folks. What mom says goes, right? And so now that's changing. They're older and they're coming through. Like Samuel says to me, I was trying to think of things. He says to me the other night, "You're my favorite mom." And I was like, de facto, I'm your only mom. So that's not actually as cool as it sounds. Right. And he says, "Yeah, but you're my least favorite mom too. So sit with that." And I was like, "Yeah, okay." So, I mean, stuff like that. They're coming into their own. I can see some of that transition, and that is hard. Just like you said, it's different. It's not bad always. It's just different.
Yeah, just all these different seasons of life we go through. When you're young, you're like, I want to graduate high school. I want to drive. I want to graduate high school. I want to get married. I want to have kids. And then no one tells you, like, what's after that. I know, I want to have grandkids, but you don't really think about that until you have grandkids, I think. But so with all the challenges and the busyness and the different stages we're in, I want to know, and I think a lot of people would want to know, how do you find time to foster friendships? How do you find time to invest in your marriage? Because we're so busy and all the different things. How do you make time for that? I know you talked about travel ball parents. Brock played travel ball, and I felt like looking back now, I had a lot of seasonal friends. And so you have your baseball friends during baseball season. And then, Brock played basketball. So then you had your basketball friends. And Tucker was in plays and things. So you had all these different set of friends. And then when your kids are gone, you're like, I don't have forced friends anymore. I got to find my own friends. And, you have some friends I've had forever. But it's hard, I think, to foster time. Even now, in my stage with Tucker gone, it takes a lot of effort to keep friendships. And it takes a lot of just intentionality to keep these relationships, especially a lot of my friends still have kids involved, young kids involved in things. And so it's just a different phase for me, like finding the friends that are in the same stage of life as we are that I actually want to hang out with. So it's a little different now, but Rylie, we'll start with you. How do you find time to like foster friendships and your relationship with your husband?
Oh, the relationship with the husband is tough right now, just with him being in school and us both working full time. It's sometimes just sitting down with a bowl of ice cream at the end of the day and saying, hey, how are you?
You get that from your mom?
100%. 100%, yeah. We literally just were talking the other day about how we're probably not very good at being intentional with like outside of the home. Like, I can't tell you last time we went on a date night. It's just few and far between, but like trying to find, even if it's not like a date night out of the house, just like some intentional time together to like check in. Like otherwise it's so easy to get caught in that like just roommate phase. Like, oh, I gotta go do this, I'm gonna go cut the grass, I'm gonna go to the groceries or whatever, just that like taking care of all the things. So just finding time to be together, the two of you, and like checking in on each other. But I think a date night out of the house is probably a good thing
that's
too.
probably good.
But friendships are hard too. I find that the friendships that I have maintained since having, so Eric and I are kind of the first of our both friend groups, like his friends and my friends, to like get married and the first to have kids. And so we feel often like we're kind of not in the same season of life as our old friends per se. So that's where we found like joining a small group here at the church was super helpful. And it kind of like forces you to see people outside of the house like once a week, which is nice. And then we do things with them outside of just like our small group. So that's been helpful. And then I find that my like friendships that have survived, I say, are our low maintenance friendships, the ones where I can like be like, hey, and just like we'll find a time to talk on the phone. We're not always necessarily seeing each other like in person and hanging out or doing whatever, but like still checking in on one another. And it's like we can just pick up kind of where we left off, like, and they like understand like, oh yeah, like I know things are busy, or they're willing to come and hang out with me and Nellie. Like it's not just me. Like a lot of like my best friend growing up, Morgan, be like, oh, what are you and Nellie doing on Saturday? Not just like, oh hey, are you free? So that's been helpful. But
small
it's hard.
groups I think are so important at like especially your stage of life, because when we started going to church here, Tucker was 2. We didn't have Brock yet. And most of my friends were that small group, because you could go to small group and you had childcare, or like half time we got our own childcare. And it's just most of the people in the same stage of life that you could come and say, gosh, I'm struggling with this. And they would be like, it's normal. Us too. You're not crazy. And just having that. But that was probably the biggest surprise for me, is like how seasonal friendships are. Like the people in high school, I talked to besides Terry, no one from high school. And you just think those are going to be your friends forever. And even like then like college age and then young mom, it just kind of changes. And it doesn't have to change because of anything bad. It just kind of like different stages and you kind of grow apart. So how about you? How do you find time
for
these
sure?
things?
Well, I'm thinking about first Nick and I, because we work odd hours, right? We have retail hours, so we end up working mostly second shift. We talk the most to and from work, like on the drive to work, which is crazy. But he works till 10 p.m., so he's not home till going on 11, and I'm in bed like, see you tomorrow, so that is definitely hard. Shout out, I have an awesome group of friends. Nick and I do. We set up years ago like a supper club. So once a month there are 6 couples. I actually think we all go to Sycamore. That we do at someone's home, and it's just for adults. The only rules are you can't bring your kids. If you host, your kids are there, right? So, and it's the best thing because it's always something to look forward to. Very low maintenance. It can be fancy if you want. We've ordered takeout. We've had pizza. I mean, it's, whatever, but it's intentional. And so I was thinking when you said that too, intentionality. And that is so hard. When you think, okay, I just got to set something up. I got to call somebody. Text messaging, and this is showing my age, has made that easier too, right? Because you can just super quick, like text rather than, hey, let's all 5 of us get on a party line and talk on the phone. You know what I mean? She's like, what's a party line?
What's a party line?
Yeah.
Sounds fun.
So, that has helped, but it's definitely not the in-person thing. So it's a job for sure.
That's good to have. I mean, I love that you have that. Like I have a book club that it's all ladies though. So I don't have that with like couples, and they're just from my neighborhood. So they're even not all people I would just be like, hey, you want to go do something with? But it's just a group that I meet with once a month. And small groups, again, I have a Bible study at my house on Friday, and then we have like a co-ed Bible study on Sunday night. And those are definitely friends too, but it's hard. I think it's important at every stage to have a date night. And when Terry and I first got married, we met this old couple at like a Cracker Barrel. And Terry is a lot like my mom and will talk to everyone and anyone that we see. And so he asked them, like, what's the secret to marriage? Because they'd been married for 50 years or something. And they said, the first thing they said was, marriage isn't always 50-50. Sometimes it's 80-20, and you could be the 20 or you could be the 80 anytime. I thought that was good.
Wise.
And she also said, make time, put it on your calendar to have a date night. Even if it's something where you can't get a sitter, like go to a different, after your baby goes to bed, go to a different room in your house and do something out of the ordinary, like play cards or just something, because it's so important to do. And if you get into that habit, and you have to be intentional, I think. Like I schedule on our calendar, you know, I'm a little OCD anyway, but I schedule on our calendar, even now, date night. Even though we see each other, we're with each other all the time, we still have like a date night, and we take turns planning it. And I schedule on our calendar like a no plans night, because otherwise we'll just fill that calendar. You're probably the same way, right up. And so we like intentionally now will have easier to do, because I don't have kids I have to run everywhere. But we schedule like a no plans night, and that is a night that like we hold tight to that. Also, like doing a couples devotion together can kind of feel like something out of the ordinary, so you don't get caught up into the, okay, well, I'm picking him up and you take him and I put the laundry in, because it can easily get like that. But it's so important. And it's important to show your kids that like this relationship matters more than you do, because you're going to leave me and I'm going to be stuck with them. And like it's biblical that your marriage should come before your kids. And Terry would always tell our kids that, which always made them feel, I felt bad about it. But now Tucker like remembers that. Terry would always say, like, your mom is going to always be my number one, even over you, because you're going to leave me and go on and have someone else that you should be that way with. So sometimes that's hard to think about, because, oh, I love our kids, but I think that's important. So we talked a little bit about small groups, but how do you put and keep church and Jesus in your kids' lives? So it'll be very different for both of you. I know when Brock played travel ball, we never did anything that was intentionally on Sundays. Now you do have some tournaments that you couldn't help, but he played fall ball one year, and Terry coached, and it was on Saturdays, and it was great. They switched it to Sundays, and so I'm like, well, Brock just can't play, and Terry won't. Well, Terry said, I won't coach. And everyone was so mad at us. We were like the weird church people. And for me, it was just important to show Brock that, like, church and God and we can't miss 8 Sundays in a row. We just can't. And so we made that hard and fast line, and we were not very popular for that. But Brock didn't even care. Like at first he was kind of disappointed, but he just loved being here. So my kids were here both services from the time they were born, because Terry plays drums and I've been on staff forever. So it's just something they grew up in. They ended up, being in kids ministry and teaching stuff in VBS, and we did like devotionals with them when they were real little at dinner. That was like our big time to do devotionals. But it's hard, and especially it's so different now than it even was when you were younger and my kids were younger. Just everything's different, and it's harder to keep Jesus in their life, and they're bombarded by so many negative things in school that we can't control. Like, I swear, social media, every time you feel like you got a grip of what's going on, something new comes up that you didn't even know about. And so we'll start with you, Rylie, because it's easier. How do you plan to keep doing that with her?
It's kind of all I've ever known, really. I mean, and same boat. I mean, I grew up with your kids, and my mom's on staff, so it's like all I ever really knew. But I mean, I played travel soccer, and church was always a priority. There were many Sundays, if I had a game or whatever on a Sunday, I'd show up in my soccer gear, or I'd come after an 8 a.m. game to second service, and a friend would drop me off or whatever. And it was always a priority. And I spent many a Sundays here, both services, and very much in that like service mindset once I kind of was old enough to like understand it. I've been in the nursery at the church since I don't even know how old, helping with the babies. And now it feels wrong to not be plugged in somewhere, serving in some capacity. And so on Sundays when my husband works, Nellie and I are here both services. She's in the toddler room 2 services, and I'm somewhere else. And it's just all I've ever known. But it's important to me too, and it's important for her to see that. And I don't know, it's just all I've ever known. But Mom always made it a priority, and Dad. My dad's in medicine too, so he worked a lot of weekends. But I mean, somebody's got to. So my husband is in EMS, and people don't quit hurting themselves or bad things happening and things like that. But somebody's got to work on the weekends. Right. So, but yeah, I mean, watching. I mean, I bring her every Sunday. So just being intentional about like, I don't know, practicing the Sabbath. And I was talking to Eric about this. This is a discussion that we've kind of been talking about, like with him working some Sundays, like even like the Sabbath doesn't have to be on Sunday. Like say you are off on Saturday, maybe on Saturday we practice the Sabbath and that sort of thing. So it's just kind of like trying to be intentional in other ways too. And then it was a really like kind of cute full circle moment on Easter Sunday. We were on a walk. I feel like it was nice or something. Maybe it was the day after, but I was walking with Nellie and Eric in our neighborhood. And we were talking about Easter and things. And I was like, Nellie, do you know what Easter means? She goes, Jesus is alive. And I was like, you're only 2. I was like, oh, but it's just like,
That's awesome.
She pays attention. So it's like so cool to see things like that. And it's like encouraging to see things like that too, because it's like she has a little toddler Bible that will read a Bible story. Like we read like maybe 3 books before bed. So like one of them is a Bible story. And it's like, how much is she like really grasping or understanding? And she'll be like, Jesus loves mommy. Jesus loves daddy. I'm like, yeah.
Yeah, that was going to be my question. What would you say to moms out there listening that are afraid, I don't know if that's the right word, to leave their kids in kids ministry, or maybe their kid's a little fussy when they first leave them and they don't want to leave them there? What would you say about what Nellie learns being in kids ministry versus if she was sitting with you watching the adult message?
She wouldn't learn anything in the adult message, and she'd just be a distraction to me.
Yeah, exactly.
I know it can be super intimidating, and I grew up in kids ministry at Sycamore. I know like a lot of the volunteers. I am a volunteer myself, and I still found myself when Nellie was like 6-8 weeks old having a hard time leaving her in the nursery. And I mean, I know the nursery workers. I am a nursery worker, but it's hard, especially with your first baby, just leaving them in the unknowns and whatever. But it's important. It's just really important. And it's beneficial not just for you because you can give the service your undivided attention, but it's also important for your kid. Like I said, Nellie's only 2 and she's starting to already grasp. I mean, I don't know how much she grasps, but like just restating those simple principles and things. So I think that it's super beneficial for on both ends.
Yeah, for sure.
And as being a volunteer with the fussy kid, the fussy baby, the fussy toddler, whatever age, it happens at all the ages. You just have to be upfront with the workers on what your expectations are. I mean, I have some moms that'll be like, oh no, only call me if like they're really, really not getting along, like, or you're tired.
Yeah, right.
And then I have some moms that are like, oh, I really am just like super nervous, and I'll be like, okay, you can come and check a couple times, or we'll text you if like the baby's not calming down, or you just need to be upfront with your expectations and what your level of comfortability is with crying it out or fussing or that sort of thing.
I
so
hope
good.
I
So
hope in the
good.
nursery too, and the toddler room and all of them, and we're always like, "Oh, babies, so please bring them."
Yeah. And the workers
Because
want to
if
be
there's
there.
not
They're
enough
there.
to go
Yes.
around, then we have to fight over the babies. It's ugly. So
it does get kind of ugly sometimes.
yes.
All right, how about you? You're in a different stage, a little harder. You have lots of travel kids. So how do you?
Honestly, so I'm going to hang my head in shame because we are not the parents that come every Sunday and have said we can't plan anything. We're normally not here from like the end of May through the beginning of August on a Sunday because somebody always has something. But I will tell you, so Samuel works at Chick-fil-A, and Samuel specifically looked for a job that was not open on Sundays because he was not willing, hell or high water to miss the well. So for me, I mean, I see it through more than Kidsmen, but through the student ministry that they don't want to miss.
Didn't Samuel do the shred? The Bible in 30 days with Mitch and Nick and them?
Yes, he did. Listen
Crazy.
to the
In
Bible,
30
the
days.
whole Bible in 30 days. Yeah, girl, because he walked around with the AirPods in his ears all the time. And I was like, are you talking to me or are you listening to the Bible? Which, how do you argue with that?
Right.
He's
Right.
like, Bible. And I'm like, not funny. So they are good. We are all the village raising my children doing something well because for both of their travel teams, they have been asked to say the prayer before games.
Oh, nice.
And they relish that. So both of them have no problem standing up for their faith, proclaiming their faith, putting it on display. Luckily for them, Ryan's too young for his stuff yet, but he sees his brothers, and his brothers are very confident in that. And, they take ribbing for that. They do, and that doesn't seem to faze them. So I will say whatever we're all doing, Sycamore included, is wonderful. Yeah. So they're teaching us. I mean, Nick and I went to church our whole lives, but they are helping us kind of see all that on display.
Yeah.
So.
We have 3 kids. It's harder to miss Sunday. I mean, it's harder to not have something on Sunday. Like I had 1 kid in travel sports, so it was a little easier to say, okay, this one kid's not doing it, but
yeah, and truly, I mean, people here, like luckily the Markles help us out. I mean, rides, and we're dropping kids off and picking kids up, and Easter, we miss, my whole house had the stomach flu. So and I'm working. We work weekends, so there's another thing too. So it's a lot.
Yeah. Well, this has been a very good conversation. I have something we're going to end on. I thought we would do like some kind of step down advice. So what I mean for that is, so Rylie, you would give some kind of advice to those listening who maybe don't have kids yet or are pregnant or thinking about having kids, just some kind of mothering advice to them. You can think about it for a minute because I just threw that on you. And then Julie, you'd kind of be the one to give like people like Rylie and people in Rylie's with younger kids who aren't quite where your kids are, like just a piece of advice for them to take with them to get to your stage. And then I would kind of give advice to like you who are in the midst of all the craziness, just to kind of give some, just your advice. So whatever like is on your heart that you feel like, I wish someone would have told me this, or this is important, or I'm glad I did this and you should do it too, those kind of things. Again, I will go first since I knew what these questions were. But I would say, like for you, Julie, foster the relationships with your boys. It's harder with boys because it tends to seem like when the boy and the girl gets married, they kind of go towards the mom's family, the wife's family. That kind of seems the natural, not always, but it does. And so it was important to me to really foster my relationship with Tucker and Brock. And even Brock and I had a lot of opportunity to be alone because we went to the National Institute of Health once a month or something. But I was very intentional with Tucker in taking him away with just me all the time, which I can't do anymore. It's a little weird now because he's married. If he was a girl, it would have been easier. But I was very intentional with my relationship with him and forming a friendship and a trust. And now, like, we just have this awesome relationship that I don't think a lot of people have with their sons. And I sometimes, I think Terry feels like Tucker might talk to me more sometimes, but I'm like, I worked really hard for that because I wanted that. And so don't let all the years slip by and then realize like, I've just been so busy and I'm taking them everywhere, but like have the dinners alone with each one of them, like find time alone with each one of them to find out, to zero in on what's important to them, and it'll just pay off when they get married, and then they'll still want to be around you. So there's my advice to everyone in that state.
Also, if they would marry orphans, I have planted that seed that also works out if that would be.
I had someone else tell me that. I hope my son marries someone whose mom died. I was like, oh my gosh.
It's harsh. I think, orphan sounds better.
Yeah, it's the same thing though.
Oh, my goodness, Rylie. I would say, and you touched on this, I think, with Terry, one thing that, I fail every day. Every day,
we all do.
I fail, right? But one thing I have been pretty good about is I'm good with the follow through. So my kids will say, if I say it, they know I'm going to do it. Good and bad, right? If that's following through on a punishment, if that's following through with something we're going to do that's fun, anywhere in the spectrum. So try always to follow through because I do think that they respond to that.
Oh, yeah.
Positive and negative, I will say that for sure. And again, what you put into the emotional bank, you will get out. So it is timing, and it's, not knocks on our husbands at all, but I know you're in the same kind of a boat. Our husbands aren't there, and that's not their fault. And, they're funding a lot of what we're doing, which I always do say thank you for.
Somebody's got to pay for the trip.
Amen. Amen. Somebody's got to work so I can stay home.
Yeah.
So, but that is harder. And so then, yes, what you put in, you will get out. So I do try to do that as well. Yeah. But I do not endorse any of my parenting methods, just as a discllaimer.
I know your boys. Your boys are great. So.
I will take 100% credit for that. 98% credit.
Yes.
98.
How about you, Rylie?
Yeah. So thinking of like people that don't have kids yet or thinking about having kids or maybe newlyweds or whatever, just do it. There's never any perfect time to have a baby. I mean, my husband and I, we've been married. This will be going on we got married in 2019, so I guess our 5th year anniversary this year. He did a total career change shortly after we got married. He went to school to be a teacher. Now he's pursuing a career in EMS. We have a 2.5-year-old. He started EMT school. I was pregnant, and now here I'm pregnant with number 2, and he started paramedic school, and that's a 14-month journey. So it's, there's never a perfect time. And I just feel like if it's on your heart, just go for it. I felt very strongly like God was telling me like, hey, it's time to have a baby. And my husband was like, is it? Like, I don't know. Let's wait until I'm done with school. And I was like, no. So just do it. Trust what God places on your heart. And then I feel like so much in this world, I feel like my generation of like young moms is saying like, oh, it's so scary to raise a kid in this world. And all the world changes and things. And like, you can't live in fear. And I feel like that's where just being a believer truly is so helpful. You can place your hope in God. You don't have to live in fear. You shouldn't live in fear. And I think it's reassuring to know that God intentionally placed these children in your lives for you to be their mother and for them to grow up in this generation. And you've just got to trust him in that. And any fears that you have, you just got to surrender it to him and just trust that he has a perfect plan for their life. And it's scary to not be in control, but relinquishing that control to him just gives you so much peace. You just can't live in fear. So
Very good.
I have the picture of Nick and I in the hospital when we have Samuel, and every time I look at the picture, I think the same thing. We took the picture, he's in the carrier, and Nick looked at me and he said, they're letting us go home with him. And just panic on both of our faces. And you're 100% right. You figure it out.
Yeah.
You figure it out.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Well, very good. I just think motherhood is hard, all the stages. I remember my kids were little and I'd be overwhelmed and in tears thinking this is never going to end. And then the busyness and you're like, I'm never going to have time for me. And then in my position, I think the truest statement ever is the days go slow and the years go fast. Never a truer statement. So enjoy the time of being mom. Thanks for joining us. We love all you moms. We appreciate you. We are here for you. We're here behind you. We know how hard it is. For your moms, happy Mother's Day. For my mom, happy Mother's Day. I hope Brock gives you a big old hug in heaven this year. Thanks for joining us. As always, if you have any suggestions for our podcast, you can shoot us a suggestion and we'd love to hear from you. So thank you and happy Mother's Day.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the In All Things podcast. Our challenge for you today is to send this episode to one person. Seriously, think of somebody right now that could use this conversation and send it to them. If you have any questions, feedback, or topic ideas, please send them to podcast@sycamorecreek.org and make sure you follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Sycamore Creek Church so that you can always see what's going on in our world. If this conversation helped you at all, make sure you share it, leave a review, and subscribe so that you don't miss out on a single episode. We love you, God loves you, and we'll see you next week on the In All Things podcast.